Brahms is bringing the heat. Introducing Brahms' new spicy chicken sandwiches. Flavor this good just can't be beat. Brahms' crispy, tender, spicy chicken delivers just enough kick to ramp up our original recipe. Get it regular or club style with crispy bacon and American cheese. Add on Brahms sauce for that extra burst of heat, and you have spicy chicken sandwich perfection. Because nothing is better than Brahms.
It's time for the Skordle Pay Dirt Pick'em Show, presented by Maples, Nix, and Dieselhorst Attorneys at Law. We put it out there, the teams, the stats, the opinions, the picks, and most importantly, where to stop for dinner on the way to the game. Let's get to it. Here's your host, Andy Campbell.
Well, hello and welcome, football fans, to the Skordle Pay Dirt Pick'em Show, sponsored by Maples, Nix, and Dieselhorst. From all of us here at Skordle, happy Thanksgiving to each and every one of you. It's time for semifinal football in Oklahoma, and we have the A team of experts here to break down these games here tonight. Let's start with Mr. No Fun, old man yelling at kids for walking on the grass. Mark Rogers is here, and also Tom Nelson. They are the voices of Skordle who bring you the action in football and basketball every week. And we also have three of the best coaches in Oklahoma on our panel tonight. We have Coach Jeff Craig from Blanchard. He was on last week. He is joined tonight by Coach Justin Jones from Norman North High School and Coach Lynn Shackelford from Cashion High School. Coach Shack, let's start with you. Great season for the Wildcats in Cashion this season. Tell us about your year and what the outlook is for 2025.
I thought we had a pretty good year this year, especially coming off of 3-8 last year, getting beat in the first round of the playoffs. Still really young. I mean, we started a whole bunch of sophomores who also started last year when they were freshmen. And then mixed in some juniors and a few seniors. But we lose 7 seniors off the team this year, and I mean they'll be hard to replace. But if you look at the probably 95% of our offensive production's coming back for next year, we'll have to fill some holes in the offensive line and fill some holes on the defensive side at linebacker and up front. But I think we've. After 2 years of kind of going the wrong direction after 21, I think we've got it at least pointed back in the right direction for next year, and we'll see. I mean, there's a whole bunch of things that have to go into it in order to be successful, but I really like our team and like our future, and I think our winning a playoff game this year was big. We haven't done that since 21, so letting those kids kind of experience that a little bit, and hopefully the taste of getting their butt kicked in the quarterfinals will, just like us as coaches, motivate us in the off season and see what we can do next year. But, I think all in all, if you'd have told me after last year that, hey, you guys, you're going to win 8 games, you're going to go to the quarterfinals, I'd have probably said, I'll take it.
Jack, appreciate having you on. Coach Jones, tell us about the Timberwolves this year and what you have coming back in 2025.
Yeah, it was really a tale of two halves of the season. Didn't have a lot of success early. Played some good football in every game, but just couldn't find the right end of it. But proud of our kids and our staff. I thought they continued to fight and stay true to our process. And they're late. We're really able to flip the season around and scratch out some wins and obviously make the playoffs, and then get a chance at redemption there to beat a team that we got beat by earlier in the season in the first round, and made it to the quarterfinals again. I think this is our 5th straight year to do that, and we always end up with a Bixby or a Wasso, but proud of our team, proud of our staff. Our kids continue to fight, and that's all you can ask as a coach. Played a lot of young guys. We had a ton of sophomores starting this year. I think we started 8 or 9 sophomores, which is crazy at our level to do and to have success. But, for us, I think it was, we really lose our quarterback, but we've got a good room there to replace him and bring back all of our skill, which is nice, and bring back 4 of our 5 offensive linemen, which is much needed. That was a big glaring weakness for us most of the year. So those guys have some major experience underneath their belts. And then, defensively, same thing. Got to replace a couple of guys, but for the most part, we were young. And, hopefully we'll learn some lessons this year about our preparation and physicality that you have to win at this level. And, looking forward to the offseason. And, same thing with staff, making sure, we had new coordinators on both sides of the ball. So they'll have another year under their belts, which I think will be a tremendous asset as we move forward. But looking forward to the future.
Appreciate having you on, Coach Jones. As always, had you on the show a lot, so really enjoy having you. All right, we want to make sure that our listeners are aware of the scheduling of the remaining games this season. The semifinal games involving classes 6A1, 6A2, 3A, 2A1, 2A2, and B1 will be played this Friday, November 29th. The semifinalists in classes 5A, 4A, A1, A2, B2, and C do not play this week. They have a bye week, and those semifinal games will be played on this Friday, December the 6th. So on tonight's show, we're only discussing the games and classes that play this week, November 29th. We'll discuss the classes that play next week on next week's show. So 4 semifinal games to pick tonight that involve Skordle Network schools. Again, these 4 games will be played on Friday, November 29th. So let's kick off the show with a 2A1 semifinal matchup. First up, Washington versus Metro Christian, which we played at Hara on Friday at 7 p.m. The Warriors 12-0 after a 48-14 defeat of Kiefer in the quarterfinals. Metro Christian also 12-0 after a close 27-21 defeat of Jones a week ago. Mark Rogers starts off.
Man, these teams kind of have a way of showing up in the bracket late in the season. Washington, Marlowe, Metro Christian, when they've been in 2A, have played a bunch of games in November and December. I would like to say hi to Tom after last seeing him Friday night. I want to let him know that my toes and fingers are all in good shape after almost losing them during the postgame show. I'm not usually prepared to have that length of a postgame show, especially when we're surprised by broadcasting on the roof of the stadium. I'll wear a coat next time. I can't. Washington's had some injuries to their offensive line. Metro can really throw the ball. But these are 2 incredibly talented teams that I think would fare well even if they played up a class or 2. I'm going to go with Washington.
Tom Nelson.
Yeah, Mark, it was cold up there. And the thing is, with my my leg situation, once I got up there at the beginning of the game, I knew I wasn't getting back down. I'm glad I bought myself a really, really heavy coat on sale a couple of months ago because it did come in handy. But fun trip to Owasso, first time I've been over there, and saw a really good team in Rejoice. So this ball game, these 2 teams, they got very familiar with each other 5 or 6 years ago. They played each other in the playoffs in 18, 19, and 20. Metro Christian won all those games, including for the gold ball in 2020. Washington has played in 4 straight championship games, starting with that 2020 matchup, and they've put those bad memories of losses to the Patriots behind them. Of course, a 42-game winning streak is going to help out with that a little bit. Metro Christian was putting up 8-man-like blowout scores since September. They probably needed that test they got last week from Jones. The Warriors haven't been tested in the playoffs, but they beat 2 really good teams who are still playing in Sulphur and Marlowe in overtime during the regular season. If you're anywhere close to Hara on Friday night, you might want to stake out a spot in the stands on this one. But I'm not picking against Washington, but I think it'll be pretty close. This is going to be a really good ball game, but I'll go with Washington.
Coach Shack.
Yeah, it's. I mean, how do you go against Coach Beller and the Warriors? I mean, they've been there and done it a whole bunch. They've got a freshman quarterback this year that is really, really good. I think I saw on the paper or something the other day. I mean, he's completing over 70% of his passes, which is pretty crazy to do that at 14 or 15 years old, however old he is. But I'm kind of like Tom. I think it's going to be really, really close. I mean, Metro seems like every year they're a really tough out. But I think Washington having those 2 tough games against Marlowe and against Sulphur will help them in this situation. And if you put a twist of my arm and said you got to pick an upset this week, that Metro might be the one. But until somebody beats them, I'm going with the Warriors.
I know Coach Jones hasn't watched a whole lot of film of 2A and Class B schools like we're going to discuss here tonight. But Coach Jones, let's go to you, Washington versus Metro Christian.
Yeah, I'm just like everybody else, hard to pick against Washington. I know that, Metro has also been there and done that. And you got two 12-0 teams that, I think Washington, if I looked at it right, points forced on average is 45.75 a game. And Metro's defense has only given up 7.33 average on games. So it looks like on paper it's a pretty close call. I think it'll be a good game. I'm not going to count against Washington, though, and just with the elite talent that they have. I think their freshman quarterback's playing well, but I think he's surrounded by an exceptional running back. And I know they've got some injuries up front, but, what Case Alexander and their defense can do, these guys are battle tested. So I'm going to go with Washington in this one.
Coach Craig.
Yeah, I can't go against Washington. I picked them last week and really kind of picked them to go the whole way and to pull off another go ball. But like Shaq said, if there's one that could win, Metro would be the one that could pull this off. This could be a state championship game very easily. I think both teams are that good. But 42 games and the role they're on and the talent they've got on the field and it's hard to go against them. So I'm going to stick with the Warriors again this week.
And now the other 2A1 semifinal game. The Millwood Falcons moved 11-1 on the year with a 22-7 win over Chandler last week. The Falcons will now face the 10-2 Marlowe Outlaws, who won at Kingston 27-21 a week ago. Millwood Marlowe will be played at Noble High School on Friday evening. Mark, who moves on to play for the Gold Ball?
I think we've got a rematch. Again, I mean, it would be the trilogy. Third time in a row for Millwood and Washington. I like Millwood in this game. Marlowe's absolutely good enough to make it close. I think this will be a low-scoring contest. Marlowe's defense has only given up more than 3 touchdowns in one game this year. That was the overtime loss at Washington. So Xavier Thompson at Millwood is he is a big play threat, really good basketball player, won the 400 meters. And I've loved Carter, their middle linebacker, and sometimes running back in the backfield there. This is the third year for CJ Turnbull to start at quarterback. So I think we'll have another rematch between Washington and Millwood in the final.
Yeah, I guess we can expect it when you get down to state semifinals. There are no easy games to pick here. And this is another one that's really tough. This is not some big long-standing rivalry. They haven't played in 32 years. They've only played twice, but this could be one of the best games of the weekend. Marlowe's been tested a little more in the postseason, back-to-back 1-touchdown wins over Chisholm and at Kingston. Marlowe had to rally from a halftime deficit. They were shut out in the first half, scored 4 touchdowns in the second half, the winning score coming in the final minute. So they were definitely tested. Millwood had a hard time shaking Chandler last week, but Xavier Thompson did his part, 97 receiving yards and a couple of big touchdowns. Now, I can see Marlowe winning this, but I picked Millwood to get to the finals, so I'm not going to stray from my earlier prediction. I'm going to go with the Falcons in this one.
Coach Craig.
Yeah, if I was going to probably pick an upset, Marlowe would be the one that I would pick. But I just think we're going to have that Millwood-Washington repeat. And, Marlowe could very well pull this off, and I wouldn't be surprised. But it's kind of hard to go against Millwood. They've been on a roll. They've had that one close game with Perry, but that was I think weather was kind of an issue in that game. But I think Millwood pulls this one off, and like everybody will probably say, in a very close game. I think and Tom said it'll be a fun one to watch.
Coach Jones.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Millwood in this one. I don't think it'll be quite as close. I like the fact that Millwood's bringing in a quarterback that's been there for 3 years. Coach Frank always has his guys ready to go. I think just it'll be a physical football game, but at the end of the day, Millwood's really athletic and getting past that second level. Turn those things into touchdowns. And so I'm going to give the edge to Millwood. I think that they will take care of business this week.
Coach Shaq.
So are we keeping track? I mean, like on Saturday, do we get to look and see like who won and lost on the picks?
That calendar science.
We'll make that happen.
I mean, I'm not saying there's money on it or anything.
There is a graphic out there floating around somewhere if somebody
Yeah.
fills it out every week. So yeah.
All right, then sweet. Then I'm going against the grain. I'm gonna make my move right here. I love Marlowe last year. I thought they had a really good chance. Their run through the playoffs last year was nothing short of a brutal one. But I think Coach Weber does a great job, and I just feel like they're kind of due. They've played some really tough competition this year. They took Washington to overtime, and the thing that's going to put it over the edge for me to pick the Outlaws is their mascot. I talk about it all the time. It's the best one in Oklahoma, next to ours. But it's incredible. I mean, painted by two Marlowe alums. I mean, it needs to be all over everything.
Great 5 o'clock shadow.
Yeah, it's insane. So I'm going with the upset. I think something's got to change in 2A. And I wouldn't be shocked if it's Metro and Marlowe, but I'm going with the upset this week.
Okay, I like it. Maybe Marlowe could storm the field, Mark.
For a state championship, heck yeah. I mean, when you're 5-6, 5-5, I mean, I don't know about the storming the field.
At least wait till the game's over.
Hey, I'll tell you who else would storm the field. That'd be the Blackwell Maroons. If they can get off the schneid and win a game, I will storm the field.
For those who don't know, Mark took a bunch of flack on Twitter this week for criticizing OU for storming the field. So I had to get back and Mark there a little bit. All right, Class B1 football. The Dewar Dragons 10-1 season after a 66-18 dismantling of a good Turpin team last week. Dewar moves on to the semifinals to face Hollis. Tigers defeated Drumright 30-14 to move to 9-2 on the year. Tom Nelson, Hollis versus Dewar.
I've got to say really quick, my daughter was in the student section in Norman on Saturday night. And as the crowd was going onto the field before the ball game, I texted her and said, "Don't you dare go on that field till the game's over." She took a picture and showed me that she stayed in the stands. And I said, "Good girl." And then later on, she took one of her laying flat on her back on the 50-yard line. So she waited her time. But, this Hollis Dewar game is not going to surprise you much based on their geography. They've never played each other. I don't know how this happens, but Hollis played their first 5 games of the season on the road. Didn't have a home game until October 11th, and then had to go play at C number 1 Tipton and B number 1 Laverne, which covers their 2 losses right there. We've talked about how impressed we've been with Dewar, and then they steamroll a really good Turpin team. Final score was 66-18 last week. I hate to say it, but I'm afraid that the best part of the trip for Hollis is the fact that they only have to go halfway to play the Dragons. I think Dewar's winning big in this one. Mark?
These 8-man schools are talented, the ones that are still left in the Class B Division I. I like the Dragons to win this game and have a showdown coming up next week with Laverne.
Coach Shack.
Yeah, I think Dewar and Laverne have kind of been on a collision course all year. I think they're a little bit head and shoulders above everybody else, and I think you'll see that this weekend. I don't think this one will be close. I think Coach Bean and the Dragons get it done and get it done pretty early.
Coach Jones.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Dewar on this. I'm going to defer to a lot of you guys on this 8-man stuff, but I think just tradition, Dewar's been there, especially here recently, and hard to go against Coach Bean and what he does. I think they'll win big on this one.
Coach Craig.
Yeah, a little bit surprising last week. I think, half of us, we were kind of split on that Dewar-Turpin game last week when we went on that and thinking that was going to be a really close game and a really good game, and Dewar didn't let that happen. So I think it's kind of hard to go against Dewar in this one. I thought, like Shaq said, Dewar and Laverne's on the crash course, and I don't think anything changes this week, so I'm going with Dewar again.
This Hollis Dewar game played at Alex High School on Friday, 7 p.m. And our pick 'em game number 4, the Garber Wolverines leave Yale with an impressive 38-34 win last week. Garber's reward is a semifinal matchup with Laverne at Northwestern in Alva on Friday. Laverne looking for its 6th state championship since 2012 in Class B. Tom Nelson, we'll start with you.
It's round two for these two, and the first one was no contest. But that was at a point when the Wolverines were still trying to find their way after losing Carson Bishop. Since then, they've shut out OBA, went on the road to beat Empire, and then last week's big win over Yale. They've been trying to find somebody to step in after Bishop was hurt, and the last couple of weeks it's been a sophomore, Cord Southwick. He's rushed for almost 200 yards, averaging 7.6 yards a carry the last couple of weeks against really good defenses. But Laverne has Felix Teal. He's got scholarship offers from almost half the MIAA, UCO, Emporia State, Missouri Western, Nebraska Kearney. He's also got one from the defending D2 champs over Harding in Arkansas. This kid, I think, is really going to be a good player at that level. When he uses up his time at the high school level. Back in October against a really good Turpin team, he had 396 yards rushing on 16 carries, also 4 touchdowns that ball game. I think that Garber's bounced back from that adversity pretty well this season, but they're running into a heaping helping of adversity this week, and Laverne's going to be playing for the third gold ball in 4 years after this one. They're going to move on to the state championship game.
Mark.
Felix Teal is a wizard. I mean, those numbers are like Shaq's numbers back at Morrison. So I think that, again, Laverne is really good. The only loss that they had was to Coldwater, Kansas this year, and they were just eliminated in the playoffs in their division in Kansas. And so I think probably if they played that game again, they would do it. But when Felix Teal has been healthy, Laverne has won everything. So next week I think will be a good one between Laverne and Dewar if they do advance. But, yeah, I don't think that Garber can overcome the 50-0 blanking that they had less than a month ago in this one. Even though Garber's had a great season, I picked against them last week. It was a close game against Yale, and Garber went and got the victory there. So I think it's going to be Laverne and Dewar.
I've got to say I'm a big MIAA guy because I'm a Fort Hays State grad, and I remember seeing Felix, what he did against Pioneer his freshman year. Didn't play a whole lot, but ran back a kickoff for a touchdown, and he was electric when he was in there. And I'm looking forward to seeing him hopefully in the MIAA next year. It'll be fun to watch.
Coach Craig, Garber versus Laverne.
Well, we talked about Garber's ability to run the football and being big up front and physical, and how, really just how that holds up this time of the year. When you've got the ability to do that and to be able to push people around a little bit, carries over very well at this time of the year in the playoffs. But it's not going to bode well this week, I don't think. I went with Garber last week over Yale, but I'm going to. Yep, we're on it. But sorry, Mark. But we'll go jump on that. I'm going to jump off the wagon this week and get on that Laverne train because I just think they're on their way to another state title, and Garber's going to be in the way this week, and it's going to be a rough road, I think.
Coach Jones.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Laverne on this. To be the man, you got to beat the man. I think Laverne's the man right now, and I see them in the state championship game.
Hey, if we kept track of the picks of the first round of the playoffs, I think Shaq, the two guys to your right, picked Walters over Cashin. I'm just saying. But let's get your pick. Let's get your pick, Garber versus Laverne.
I mean, not everybody can be perfect. Sometimes people make mistakes, but I think this one's kind of like the Dewar game. I don't think it'll be close. And Mark, if you we're doing this 30 years ago when I was running around the field, you would definitely see the resemblance between Felix and myself. I mean, I'm sure people in Laverne who remember that definitely have some flashbacks every time he touches it. But he's a freak, and I say it all the time. This time of the year, freaks matter, and as long as he's on the field, I think Laverne's got a really good shot. And Garber's got some athletes, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I think Laverne rolls in this one.
All right, those are our 4 pick'em games for this week that involve Skordle Network schools. We're going to quickly discuss each class that has semifinal games being played this week, and let's go ahead and start with 6A1, Mark Rogers.
The 6A Division I has had incredible quarterback play this year. I mean, across the board, there are maybe as deep in terms of Division I talent as I think that I've ever seen in the state. And then Frankenfield at Owasso, only a sophomore, he's played really good. I mean, I want to defer my time to Justin on this because he knows and he's lived it in that class. It seems like Jinx is playing great right now at the right time of the year. I think Bixby and Owasso are there. I know Owasso is going to get some players back that has been out of the lineup, maybe a little bit here towards the end of the season. And then David McComb at Edmond has taken them into areas in which they've never been since 1994, I believe it was, in 1993, before the schools split. So it's been a hell of a year for the Edmond Bulldogs, but they will have their work cut out for them, I think, under the rest of the way. To me, though, between the three Tulsa schools, it's a toss-up.
Matchups, by the way, Bixby versus Edmond Memorial, and then on the other side, Jinx versus Owasso. Tom Nelson, let's go to you, 6A1.
Yeah, a couple of weeks ago when we picked this, I had 3 of the 4 semifinalists pegged. Edmond Memorial over Norman was the one I missed, and I'm still trying to figure out how Bixby versus Memorial in Claremore is close to halfway, but I don't think it's going to matter. I think Owasso will beat Jinx again, and Bixby will avenge their season-opening loss to Owasso, and they'll get a season opening loss and a season closing win over the Rams.
Justin Jones.
Yeah, I'm going to start with the Bixby Edmond Memorial. Bixby's kind of like the old school Jinx, right? They're just different in the playoffs. I know they had the slip up there the last regular season. It may have been the best thing for them. Just speaking from experience of playing them last week, just a complete team, very, very physical. And a team that's out to prove that they still belong. Coach Montgomery and his staff, Coach Flowers, do it as well as anybody. I think the Kirby kid had a great week last week and really overcome some things that some mistakes he made the week before. But complete team, I'm going to give the edge to Bixby in that. Obviously, Coach Meredith and what he's done at Edmond Memorial and what David McComb continues to do. Right, he keeps them in every game. And kind of the unsung heroes for Memorial are the 2 interior tackles that they have up front. They're really, really good football players, and they're going to have to be great football players against Bixby this week to have a chance, just with what Bixby does offensively and all the wrinkles that they have. But I think one of the things that people don't talk about with Bixby is they're incredible on special teams, and they find an edge, whether it's going for 2 or it's in the punt return game or the punt game. They're really, really good, and it's going to be hard to pick against those guys. And then you flip over to the other side. Jinx is probably the most complete team in the state, playing their best football at the right time. And Jinx plays a different level of football in the playoffs. I know that, what people don't realize is, obviously with the new offensive coordinator, Jay's, early in the season was still filling through some things, has a ton of weapons at his disposal, and probably 2 of the better coordinators together that will have an opportunity to upset or I don't even know if it's an upset against Owasso. A lot of it's going to depend if Owasso gets all their pieces back. But I will tell you, there's not an offensive line better in our state than what Owasso has, and that's how they beat people early on. They've had some things defensively, I think that they've got to get fixed, and they can outscore everybody. But I know that this is going to be a heck of a game for the semifinals. I know that it's hard to beat a team twice, and it's hard to beat a complete team with really good coaching. But I'm not going to go against the Rams. I think they find a way to win it. But I do think Jinx is playing really good football, so that one would be a complete toss-up for me. And then I'm 100% going to go with Bixby in the semifinal.
Good stuff there from Coach Jones. Coach Craig, you want to follow that up?
Yeah, I'll hit that briefly because Coach Jones, obviously being in the middle of that, knows a lot more than most of us by experience. But I did go over and watch the Owasso game last week. Like I said, if they can get all their pieces back together, they're pretty tough to beat. Jinx is Jinx, and it's their time of the year, so never count them out at this time of the year. I think Bixby's going to rally up and probably got a dose of humble pie in that one loss and really got them back on track and refocused. So I think it's obviously looking at a Bixby. I would say Bixby, Owasso final, but Jinx is probably going to have something to say about that. And that ought to be an interesting game, be a fun one to watch.
Coach Shack.
Yeah, I think Bixby's probably going to be in the finals again this year. I've pirated some of Stillwater's film this year, so I actually watched some of Bixby on film. And like Justin said, some of the stuff they do in special teams and conversions and just on offense is really good. and probably gives them a little bit of advantage, especially when you haven't played them before. So I think that's probably going to be pretty tough for Edmond. Memorial, even though they've got a Division I quarterback, and if you've got one of those, you've got a puncher's chance. But I think Bixby's going to find a way to win and get back in the finals. As far as the other one goes, I'm going to roll with the Trojans. I think if you give Adam, you give Coach Gaylor and you give Coach Wilkinson a second shot at you, I'm gonna probably go with those guys. They're aside from being two really really good friends of mine, I think they're probably the two best coordinators in the state. I think they do a tremendous job, and I think there's something about those guys in Jinx when they all dye their hair blonde, and this time of the year it's just a little bit different, and it's always been that way. And I think they've got a little bit of something to prove this year. They've got some freaks just like everybody else that's playing in that class this time of the year. But I think Jinx is going to find a way this week, and then I think they find a way next week too. And I think the Trojans get it done and put another gold ball in the trophy case.
All right, let's move on to 6A2, the semifinal matchups here: Choctaw versus Sand Springs and Stillwater versus Muskogee. Mark Rogers.
Stillwater versus Muskogee. That may be the best matchup of the weekend. Muskogee's the defending champ. Stillwater's very good. Both teams have great defensive coaches. We're going to give defensive coaches credit for this. Jamarian Ficklin was in Norman last week. Since the Sooners had a decommit from Kevin Sperry in their 25 class, I think that they are paying a little bit of attention to Bird Ficklin as a potential quarterback recruit coming in. I don't even know who to pick in this game. I think I have Muskogee repeating, so I'll go with the Ruffers. But the last few games that these teams have played have been really close. And Muskogee has won on their run last year, the championship. They had kind of two incredible finishes with victory, and I think the regular season game that they played was a 7-point game. So they've been pretty good in close games. So I'll go with the Ruffers. The face Choctaw.
A couple of weeks ago, I said the top 4 teams getting first-round byes should have a pretty easy road to the semifinals. I think everybody was surprised Muskogee had the toughest time last week, beating Putnam City 14-0. My pick really hasn't changed, though. It's going to be Muskogee and Choctaw in the final. Ruffers going to add another gold ball to the trophy case, but yeah, Stillwater Muskogee should be a really good ball game.
Coach Jones, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'll start with Muskogee Stillwater. I think this is again, just like Mark said, I think this might be the game of the week. Right next to that Jinx Owasso game. I'm going to go with Stillwater in this game. I think that, they're finally hitting their stride and play really, really good defense. And, what Coach K. Wood does offensively, he'll find the ability to run the football and the creases. And, I don't think it's going to shock a lot of people, but again, I think it's a toss up, but I just feel like Stillwater is going to win this game. The other game I think is going to be Choctaw. I think it'll be Choctaw pretty handily, and I think it'll be Choctaw Stillwater in the finals.
Coach Craig.
Yeah, I think start with that Choctaw Sand Springs. Congratulations to Sand Springs on quite the run, but I think it comes to an end with Choctaw this week. I think Choctaw moves on. Just too much talent there, and then the Muskogee Stillwater game, as you can tell by already, it's kind of a toss-up on that. I think that's going to be a very good football game. I got to go with the big-time quarterback in the Ficklin kid and leading the Muskogee Ruffers back to the title. And they know how to get it done. They got it done last year, so I look for them to do it again.
Shaq.
Is it Sand Springs or Charles Page High School? Which one is it?
Yes.
It's the city. I mean, I think that I'm going with Sand Springs because that's the city in which they're located. So it could be Charles Page High School at Sand Springs.
Yeah, I mean they've got SS on the side of their helmet, but I've got one of my assistants. His wife is a one of those two graduates, Charles Page / Sand Springs, and I'm not sure she knows, but hey, good for them for being in the semifinals. Great season for them. I think they've had a really great year, but I think it's going to be Choctaw in that one. They've got some athletes that I don't think a lot of 6A2 or even 6A1 schools have, that they're going to be a problem to get out of the playoffs. So I'm going to pick Choctaw in that one, and then I'm going to roll with Coach Kaywood and the boys in Stillwater. Also, they were 6 inches away last year from beating Muskogee for a state championship, and I think that's probably been in the back of their mind this entire year, and they've probably been ready for another shot at the Ruffers, which, by the way, is another phenomenal mascot. But I'm gonna go with the Pioneers to get Choctaw in the finals. I think they did that a couple of years ago as well. So I think that game's going to be really good, but I think Stillwater's going to find a way.
I think on the official OSSAA bracket it says Sand Springs.
Well, I mean, if the OSSAA says it, then it's got to be true, right? I mean,
It's
zero mistakes ever made there.
All right. No 4A and 5A matchups this week, so let's skip on down to Class 3A. Tom Nelson. Tom?
I lost my notes there. Okay,
I'll give you a second here. It's Lincoln Christian versus Heritage Hall and Sulphur versus Shakota.
Yeah, the bottom right portion of the bracket is where the surprise comes from, as Bristow upset my semifinal pick, Plainview, in the first round. Then the 4 seed out of District 3 went on the road and beat Cassia Hall and Bristow in high-scoring thrillers. Sulphur's, they should end Chakota's run. I had Lincoln Christian, Heritage Hall in the semis, with Lincoln Christian winning. I'm not going against that, and I think it's going to be Lincoln Christian over Sulphur in the finals.
Mark.
Tom, how big is that beverage you have tonight? That is one of the largest I've ever seen.
It's just 32 ounces of fun right there.
They got a great use of the logo on there also. I said all along, this is one of the classes I was looking most forward to, Sulphur and Lincoln Christian in the finals. I think that we're going to get that matchup. Bear Travis is doing a great job at Heritage Hall, had a big game last week. But I think that Heritage Hall is still a little young in some spots. And this Lincoln team looks like a juggernaut. They're killing people. They have incredible speed. Sulphur is really strong up front, but I don't know that they have the speed to match up with Lincoln Christian. That'll probably be a shootout if those two teams make the finals. But that one will be, I think, a good final to talk about. But I was thinking if you combine 2A and 3A, these teams have had success. They're all playing now in both brackets. Marlowe had a lot of success last year in the playoffs in Class 3A. Back down to Class 2A. They're still in it. But I do think that Lincoln would probably stand out this year a little bit amongst all those teams. So maybe it'll be an upset if Sulphur gets Lincoln, but I think that's going to be the game.
Coach Craig.
Yeah, I think Lincoln, is the cream of the crop right now. But Sulphur's not far behind. Just that tough, hard-nosed brand of football bodes well this time of the year, and so I wouldn't count them out. But I really think Sulphur and Lincoln win this week, and I'll defer my pick till later, see how the semifinals go first before I would say which one of those two wins. But I think Lincoln's probably odds-on favorite right now to win the whole thing. But I look for Lincoln and Sulphur to be in the finals and be an interesting game.
Coach Shack.
So we got a guaranteed public-private state championship next week, right? Somebody's winning either way.
Well,
yeah. I mean, I think Lincoln Christian, they've been on a roll for 7 years now. So I think they're going to be a really tough out. I think they're going to get there. I've been pulling for Coach Cole and the Sulphur Bulldogs all year. I think he does a really good job, and just coming on the heels of what's happened down there in Sulphur between the tornado and everything else that's happened in their football world over the last 2 or 3 years. It'd be really cool if they could get back into the state championship game. And I think they're going to do that. I'm like Coach Craig. I'll wait till next week to make that pick, assuming I get a repeat performance on here. If not, I'll phone it in to Andy during the show. But I think the Bulldogs are going to get it done in Sulphur, and I think the Bulldogs at Lincoln Christian are also going to get it done. So we'll see how that goes next week.
Coach Jones.
Yeah, I go Bulldogs, right? I think that again, Sulphur, with Coach Cole and Coach Gillum and those guys down there, my heart's pulling for those guys. I agree with Coach Craig. I think when you play tough and hard nosed and physical, that bodes well for you in these games. So obviously I'm going to go with Sulphur in their semifinal, and then the other side. Even though Lincoln lost some key pieces to other teams, Lincoln's still been scoring at will and play really good defense. And another coach, Coach Ricky, does a great job there. And so I'll go with Lincoln as the winner on that side, and should be a great state championship game.
All right, we already talked about both semifinal matchups in 2A1 with Millwood Marlowe and Washington Metro. So we're going to skip down to 2A2. Those semifinal matchups, Davis versus Stroud and Bayan versus Colcord. Mark Rogers, start us off.
I don't know if it was an upset last week. Davis, though, had played in a tough district with Holdenville and Beggs. Adair is in the same district as Colcord, and that was also a pretty good district too. But a good win by the Wolves, a lot of playoff tradition. I saw that they've got the big train horn that they have there at Davis that they play that will not be allowed into the game. People were a little bit outraged by that. So, but I don't think that that's going to have any impact in the decision of this game. We'll have a Stroud-Bayan final, in my opinion, which should be a really good one. And Bayan has looked great all season long. So this is the class of the undefeateds. And Colcord and Davis snuck in with the losses last week and eliminated two of the district champions. But I expect these games to be competitive and close. But I think Stroud and Bayan emerge the winners.
Yeah, I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, I thought it was kind of impressive that in the 2A2, the smaller 2A division, you had 4 undefeated teams. And 2 of those 4 undefeated teams that started the playoffs have made it to the semis. Of course, Colcord handed Holdenville their first loss, and Davis knocked off Adair. I had a Stroud-Bayan final. I still think that's going to happen. Bayan's been dominant all year, but I'll tell you what, really impressive last week's 35-7 win over Beggs. They'll beat Stroud, and they're going to win their first gold ball, as I said 2 weeks ago. First gold ball in 53 years, 1971. I was 4 years old.
2A2, Coach Shackelford.
I've watched Stroud on film a couple different times this year, and Coach Presley's got a really good team. They do some stuff offensively that I think you don't see week in and week out, and you got to have a completely different plan for them than you do most teams, and I think that's going to continue to cause people problems in their division, and I look for them to advance. Plus, I've got 2 Stroud Tigers on my staff, so as much as I'd like to pick against them, just to give them some grief, I'll roll with Stroud this week, and I think Bayan's been just week after week just making their progression onto the finals. They've got is the right kid that's there, is that Kenyatta's? It's got to be his last one, right? I mean,
yes, I think so.
Yeah, and he's putting up video game numbers every week. But I think Bayan and Stroud meet in the finals, and I think it'd probably be a really great game to go watch. But those are the 2 I'm picking in 2A Division II.
Coach Jones.
Yeah, last year I had a chance to call the Stroud Fairview game and talk to Coach Presley walking off that field. Just felt like there was unfinished business for those guys, and they put a heck of a year together. And Shaq's right, what they do offensively presents some issues, and having to get ready for that in a week is tough. And so I'm going to go Stroud in that game. And then obviously I think with everybody else, I'm going to go with Bayan in the other one. I think it'll be a Stroud-Bayan championship.
Coach Craig.
Yeah, ditto on that. I don't think there's any doubt. I look at these 2, Stroud and Bayan, being the obvious picks on that. I don't really look for an upset in either one of those, and be an interesting finals on that. It'd be hard to go against Bayan, but Stroud definitely has something to say about that.
The last class that has semifinal games this week is B1. We've already talked about those 2 games, Laverne Garber and then Dewar versus Hollis. So that wraps it up for our discussion tonight. We're not discussing Timberlake in Class C. Oh, Tom, go ahead.
Got a question real quick. I want to throw this out to the coaches. And, of course, I've only been around Oklahoma for 20 years now, so this may have been something that happened in the past. What's your take on half the teams getting a week off, getting Thanksgiving week off? In semifinal week.
Well, I mean, if you have the week off, I'm sure, depends on how you want to look at it. From a fan's perspective, and you want to see all the state finals the same weekend, it's probably not ideal. But from a coaching standpoint, especially in those smaller classes, being able to get a week off and get some guys healthy and have 2 weeks to prepare. Anytime you get 2 weeks to prepare, I think it's probably an advantage for you. But navigating that is probably a little bit strange this time of year. But new things happen all the time in sports and football, and you got to be able to deal with it and roll with it. And, I think we get one more weekend of football. So like Mark always says, any day with football is better than a day without. So
I know that there's not a great way to do it, but I really do like ending the season for everybody in one location at different times. I mean, I think that gives proper respect to all of the different programs that play for a state championship. In many years, there are great games that you can't see because they're being played at the same time. And not everything is perfect and goes the way that everybody wants it. So I do think that it gives everybody the proper credit that they have the entire focus of the state on them at one time.
Yeah, I would say the only unfortunate thing would be, there's going to be a state championship game going on with some really good semifinal games going on at the same time next week. I think that's probably the tough thing about that. I know in our coaches association, we talked about this, with the possibility of dividing this up into 2 weekends and really, I think coaches were kind of 50-50 on it. I think if you've been there and you're in the semifinals, obviously, especially at the smaller school level, the week off doesn't hurt, gives you a chance to really spend Thanksgiving with the family and, focus on football, but not be as stressed as what you normally would be. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to be great for high school football for us. And like Shaq says, it's new. Everybody always has some anxiety when new things happen, but I think it's going to be all right. And, it's still cool that every one of these state championships games is going to be played at the same place.
I think that's neat. And coming off of a Thursday night, Friday morning championship game last year, was not fun for us. And, and that's a quick turnaround too. I mean, to turn around and play on a Thursday night, and having that week off, you just never know. I mean, you got somebody down and you get a chance to get a good player healed. I mean, I think everybody wants their best guys available, when they play in those games, and that week off gives you that opportunity. Now, there's going to be a year you don't have that week off, and the Thanksgiving tradition is kind of fun. It's fun to practice on that. We always, when we had that opportunity, you let everybody come out, you let former players come back, and everybody kind of comes by and visits and during morning practice. So it's kind of cool. But I know if we had been there, that week off this year would have been critical for us because, we had a couple guys out that really could have used back and maybe could have got them back with that week off. So, like I said before, new things, and we'll try it out and see how it works. And if we don't like it, we can always change back. But I think it's good. I like the ability to everybody play at the same place and not conflict. You don't have to choose between one state championship or another state championship game. And I think that's kind of a neat deal. Everybody can kind of get over there and see each team play.
Yeah, even the 8-man teams this year are getting it. Everybody's going to be at the same place. That's pretty cool.
For the fans that don't know, and I'm sure all of our panelists could speak to this, but I'm going to single out Coach Shaq simply because he explained it to me earlier today. But Shaq, can you talk about how these classes are going to rotate every year in terms of which class gets to bye during this Thanksgiving week?
Yeah, you can actually go on the OSSA website and you can see the next 2 years. Well, this year included would be 3 years. You can see what that rotation is going to be like. And, I think Coach Johnson at the OSSA, and I'm sure they all put their heads together and came up with that. But, you'll only do it once, every 3 years. So, like, for example, if you're 4A this year, you won't next year you won't have the off week. It'll be somebody else, 5A, or it'll be Class A division or 2A2 or whatever. And I don't know exactly how the rotation is. I haven't really looked at it other than to know that it's on there. So if you want to know, what your favorite team is going to be doing next year, you can see. But, like I said, I mean, it would be really cool also, like Coach Craig said, those Thanksgiving morning practices are cool, and they are, well, I mean, you could still practice on Thursday morning and know that you don't have to turn around and play the next day, when you have that bye week. So maybe you just have, Thanksgiving breakfast with all your team, and you don't have to stress about, the next day and what that, semifinal game is going to look like. But, I think in an ideal world, we'd have Jerry's World in Norman, and we could all, go down there with 10 locker rooms in the stadium, and everybody could, we could do like Texas does and play 3 games a day, start them on Wednesday, and be a really cool thing. Which, side note, if you've never gone down there and watched those, it's really cool to do. But it is what it is, and we'll figure it out. And like Coach Craig says, if we do this for 2 or 3 years and it's terrible, we can always redo it and adjust and make whatever adjustments we need to. But I think it's going to be cool, and lots of football is never a bad thing.
All right, we just one last note from me, something that's been I've been thinking a lot about the last couple of days. We're not discussing Timberlake in Class C tonight, but Tom Nelson has talked on the show the last several weeks about Thatcher Strong. Thatcher is a 7-year-old boy who happens to be Coach Severin's grandson. Timberlake, the #1 team in Class C, and Thatcher has recently been diagnosed with leukemia and is currently in the PICU OU Children's. And something that I found out this weekend, my daughter's a 2nd grader at Crossings, and there's a boy in her class named Hudson who's also 7 years old and been diagnosed with leukemia. He's also in the PICU OU Children's, and those 2 families have gotten really close. But both boys had really rough weekends. Yeah. I know it's touch and go, I think, for both of them at times throughout the last couple of days. So if you're the praying type, I know those 2 families would really appreciate prayers for Hudson and Thatcher. Tom, you might be able to shed some more light on Thatcher's situation, but I know it's been rough the last few days.
Yeah, I think I saw a post today from Thatcher's mom that today was a little bit better of a day. It's still not great, but he actually had surgery over the weekend, and they had to leave the wound open, stomach surgery, and left the wound open for a couple of days. It's tough. And boy, I tell you what, I see the pictures, and what I see is his mom and dad, and his dad is Coach Severin's son, he's an assistant coach for Timberlake as well. And I see them, and they've got big smiles on their faces, which I know what they're trying to do is they're trying to, keep as positive as they can and smile for Thatcher. But I know it's got to be really, really, really tough. And yeah, prayers and Venmos and buy the Thatcher Strong T-shirts and all that, because they need the financial support as well. So
yeah, we'll be thinking of those 2 boys and their families over here at Thanksgiving and beyond as they heal up. But thank you for joining us tonight on the Skordle Pay Dirt Pick'em Show, sponsored by Maples, Nix, and Dieselhorst. We appreciate Coach Craig, Coach Jones, Coach Shackelford for giving up their time and joining us tonight. Really appreciate your guys' insights on these matchups. We I don't know if any of the audio for any of these games will be on Skordle.tv this week. I'll check with Adam. We'll try to put that on the Facebook page if that's going to be the case. But due to some OSSAA regulations, we can't broadcast any of these games on Skordle.tv. But be sure to tune into the Skordle app so you can follow the scores for all these matchups. Good luck to the playoff teams in action this week. We'll be back next week with